The air shimmered like a desert mirage, and Ava Harper, New York's fiercest fashion designer, felt the world tilt. One moment, she was strutting through her Soho loft, sketching a avant-garde gown inspired by molten gold, her playlist blaring Beyoncé. The next, a strange hum vibrated through her vintage sewing machine, a thrift store, lined with cryptic carvings she'd never bothered to decipher. The room spun, her vision blurred, and a searing light swallowed her whole. When she opened her eyes, the concrete jungle of Manhattan was gone. In its place stretched an endless sea of sun-scorched sand, the horizon quivering under a relentless African sun. Ava stumbled to her feet, her silk jumpsuit clinging to her skin, now dusted with golden grains. "Okay, universe, what's the deal?" she muttered, shielding her eyes. Her platform boots sank into the dunes, and she cursed her choice of footwear. This wasn't Coachella. This wasn't even Nevada. The air smelled of dry earth and something richer spices, leather, and the faint tang of wealth. In the distance, a city gleamed, mud brick walls crowned with domes, bustling with life. Timbuktu, though she didn't know it yet. The year, 1300. The place, the Mali Empire, at the zenith of its glory under Musa, the richest man to ever walk the earth. Ava's first thought was practical, as always. I need Wi-Fi, a latte, and a way home. Her second thought was pure designer instinct. What are these people wearing? She spotted a caravan approaching camels laden with goods, men in flowing robes of coarse cotton and indigo-dyed turbans. The fabrics were sturdy but uninspired, lacking the flair she lived for. No embroidery, no silhouette, no drama. "Oh, honey," she whispered, "this is a fashion emergency." Her confidence, however, took a hit when the caravan's leader, a tall man with eyes like polished obsidian, halted his camel and stared. His name was Kofi, a merchant of salt and stories, though Ava would learn that later. His gaze raked over her jumpsuit, lingering on the plunging neckline and the way the silk hugged her curves. "Who are you, woman of strange cloth?" he demanded, in a tongue she somehow understood, perhaps a gift of whatever force had flung her here. His voice was deep, resonant, and carried a challenge. Ava tossed her braids over her shoulder, unfazed. Ava Harper, style icon. And this? She gestured to the desert. "This is my new runway." The men around Kofi laughed, their amusement tinged with curiosity. Runway? The word meant nothing to them, but Ava's swagger spoke a universal language. Kofi's lips twitched, not quite a smile. "You are bold, stranger, but boldness without purpose is dust in the wind. Come, Timbuktu does not welcome idlers." She followed, partly because she had no choice, partly because Kofi's commanding presence stirred something in her, a mix of defiance and intrigue. The city unfolded like a tapestry, markets teeming with traders hawking gold, salt, and manuscripts, women balancing clay pots with regal grace, griots chanting tales of kings. The colors were vivid saffron, crimson, indigo, but the garments were functional, not art. Ava's mind raced. She could revolutionize this place. Cotton could be sculpted, gold thread could sing. But first, she needed to survive. Her arrival didn't go unnoticed. Whispers trailed her like a breeze. The woman in shining cloth, the stranger who speaks of runways. By nightfall, she'd been offered a small mud brick room by a weaver named Amina, a woman with calloused hands and a sharp wit. Amina's workshop was a treasure trove of raw cotton and vegetable dyes, but the tools were primitive looms that creaked, needles blunt as river stones. Ava ran her fingers over a bolt of undyed fabric, her mind already sketching. "This," she said, "is where we start." Amina raised an eyebrow. "You think you can outdo Molly's weavers? Our cloth clothes kings." "Clothes them, sure," Ava shot back, her smile teasing. "But I'm about to slay them." She spent that first night sketching by lamplight, her charcoal flying across parchment Amina provided. She drew a fitted tunic, its hem asymmetrical, embroidered with gold in patterns inspired by the Manhattan skyline. It was bold, impractical, and utterly her. Amina watched, skeptical but intrigued. "You are strange, Ava Harper, but strange is not always bad." The next morning, Ava set to work. She convinced Amina to let her experiment with a small loom, her fingers fumbling at first but finding their rhythm. She dyed cotton, a deep amber, the color of a New York sunset, and began stitching gold thread she'd bartered for with a trader who'd taken a shine to her wit. The result was a tunic that shimmered like a dream, its silhouette daringly tailored to accentuate the body's lines. When she modeled it for Amina's family, the room fell silent. Then Amina's daughter, Zuri, clapped her hands. "It is like the sun itself." Word spread faster than a viral TikTok. By week's end, Ava's tunic was the talk of Timbuktu's markets. Women wanted one, men wanted one for their wives. Even Kofi, the skeptical merchant, appeared at Amina's workshop, his arms crossed. "You stir the city, runway woman," he said, his tone half admiring, half wary. "But beware. Not all welcome change. The old weavers mutter, and the gold traders fear you'll disrupt their profits." Ava smirked, threading a needle with gold. "Let them mutter. I'm just getting started." But Kofi's warning lingered. That night, as she worked late, a shadow moved outside the workshop. A figure in a hooded robe slipped away when she glanced up, leaving behind a single gold coin, etched with a symbol she didn't recognize, a spiral, like the carvings on her sewing machine back in Soho. Her pulse quickened. Was it a threat, a message, or something deeper, tied to the mystery of her arrival? She didn't know it yet, but Ava had stepped onto a larger stage. Timbuktu was a city of wealth and secrets, and her designs were about to catch the eye of Mansa Musa himself. The desert runway was set, and the stakes were higher than she could imagine. As she clutched the strange coin, Ava felt a thrill, part fear, part exhilaration. Whatever this world held, she was ready to make it hers, or so she thought. The Timbuktu sun rose like a molten crown, bathing Amina's workshop in amber light. Ava Harper, New York's displaced style maven, stood amid bolts of cotton, her fingers stained with indigo and her mind ablaze with ideas. The spiral-etched gold coin from that shadowy night still weighed heavy in her pocket, but she pushed the mystery aside. There was work to do. Her first tunic had set the city buzzing, and now every weaver, trader, and curious soul in the Mali Empire wanted a piece of her magic. "Time to turn this desert into Paris Fashion Week," she murmured, threading gold through a needle with a grin. Amina, her sharp-eyed mentor, watched from the loom. "You dream big, Ava, but dreams snag on reality like cloth on thorns." The weaver's hands moved with hypnotic precision, warping threads into a tapestry of crimson and ochre. Ava admired her skill, but saw untapped potential. These fabrics could be more draped, pleated, alive. She'd already sketched a new design, a flowing robe with a fitted bodice, its hem embroidered with geometric patterns inspired by Brooklyn's street art. It was a fusion of Mali's bold hues and her own urban edge, and she couldn't wait to see it walk. To make it real, Ava needed help. Amina introduced her to a trio of weavers: Zara, a fiery young woman with a laugh like a bell; Malik, a quiet perfectionist who wove with almost spiritual focus; and Fatou, an elder whose nimble fingers belied her years. The four became Ava's crew, a makeshift atelier in the heart of Timbuktu. By day, they dyed cotton in vats of saffron and kola nut, the air thick with earthy scents. By night, they stitched under flickering oil lamps, Ava teaching them to sculpt fabric with darts and seams. "Think curves," she urged, pinning a muslin mock-up on Zara. "This robe's got a hug like a lover and flow like a dream." Zara twirled, the muslin catching the light. "It feels powerful," she said, eyes wide. Malik nodded, his usual stoicism cracking into a shy smile. Fatou, less impressed, poked at a seam. "Strange, but strong. The market will talk." Ava clapped her hands. "Oh, they'll do more than talk. They'll beg." The robe debuted at the Grand Market, Timbuktu's pulsing heart. Ava styled Zara as the model, wrapping her in the amber robe, its gold embroidery glinting like a constellation. She braided Zara's hair with gold beads, a nod to Harlem's street queens, and dusted her eyelids with ochre. When Zara stepped onto a makeshift platform, really just a stack of salt slabs, the crowd hushed. Then came gasps, whispers, cheers. Women clutched their baskets, eyes hungry. Men adjusted their turbans, murmuring approval. Ava stood back, arms crossed, her heart racing. "That's my girl," she whispered. But not everyone was charmed. Kofi, the salt merchant with eyes like midnight, leaned against a stall, watching Ava with a mix of intrigue and suspicion. He'd been circling her since her arrival, his presence a magnetic pull she couldn't quite shake. Today, he wore a deep indigo robe that hugged his broad shoulders, and Ava caught herself staring a beat too long. He approached, his voice low. "You stir the city, runway woman, but you've pricked the pride of powerful men," the gold trader's whisper of sabotage. Ava tossed her braids, defiant. "Let them whisper. My designs speak louder." Kofi's gaze lingered, a slow burn that made her skin tingle. "Be careful, Ava. In Timbuktu, beauty is a blade, and you wield it recklessly." He turned away, leaving her breathless and annoyed. Recklessly? She'd show him reckless. The trouble began subtly. A batch of Ava's indigo dye turned rancid overnight, ruining a week's work. Then, a loom broke under mysterious circumstances. Its frame splintered as if struck. Ava's crew grew uneasy, but she refused to falter. "We're not stopping," she told them, salvaging what cotton they could. "This is just haters hating. We'll make something fiercer." She sketched a new piece, a sleeveless gown with a plunging neckline, its skirt slit to the thigh, embroidered with gold spirals inspired by that strange coin. It was daring, almost scandalous for Mali's modest norms, but Ava sensed the city craved a shakeup. The gown's creation was a marathon of sweat and ingenuity. Zara sourced rare white cotton from a northern trader. Malik perfected the spiral embroidery, and Fatou taught Ava to weave gold thread so fine it felt like air. They worked through moonlit nights, the workshop alive with laughter, arguments, and the clack of looms. Ava felt a kinship she hadn't known since her Soho days, when she and her design school crew would pull all-nighters fueled by ambition and cheap wine. But this was bigger. She was rewriting Molly's style, thread by thread. The gown was finished on the eve of the Sankor Festival, a celebration of learning and wealth. Ava planned to unveil it there, a bold move to cement her place in Timbuktu. But the merchant's sabotage escalated. A fire broke out in the workshop's storage, destroying half their dyed cotton. Ava and her crew doused the flames, coughing through smoke, only to find a scrap of indigo cloth outside embroidered with a merchant's sigil. "They're not even subtle," Zara spat, fists clenched. Malik's calm cracked. "We should confront them." Fatu, ever practical, shook her head. "Confrontation needs proof. We have none." Ava's blood boiled. She'd dealt with cutthroat designers in New York, but this was war. They want to play dirty? Fine. We'll dazzle them into submission. She rallied her crew, redistributing tasks to salvage the gown's debut. They dyed new cotton in a frenzy, using every trick Amina had taught. Ava stitched the final spirals herself, her fingers trembling with fury and focus. The gown emerged a masterpiece, white cotton glowing like moonlight, gold spirals swirling like galaxies, the slit skirt a whisper of rebellion. The festival dawned, and Timbuktu glittered. Scholars recited poetry, griots sang of Mansa Musa's glory, and traders flaunted their wealth. Ava's crew set up near the Sankor Mosque, its mud brick minarets soaring against the sky. Zara modeled the gown, striding through the crowd like a queen. The reaction was electric gasps, applause, even a few scandalized murmurs. A noblewoman offered a pouch of gold on the spot. Ava's chest swelled with pride, but her eyes scanned for enemies. She spotted them, a knot of gold traders. Their leader, a wiry man named Idris, glaring from the shadows. His sigil matched the cloth from the fire. Before she could act, Kofi appeared, his presence a storm cloud. "You've done it again," he said, his voice a low rumble. "But Idris is no small foe. He's sworn to ruin you." Ava met his gaze, her pulse quickening. "Then he'll have to try harder." Kofi stepped closer, his breath warm against her cheek. "You're fire, Ava. But fire burns its wielder too." For a moment, the festival faded, and it was just them, his intensity, her defiance, a spark neither could name. The climax came at dusk. Idris and his men cornered Ava's crew as they packed their stall, their faces hard. "Your foreign tricks end here," Idris sneered, tossing a sabotaged loom shuttle at her feet. The crowd parted, sensing trouble. Ava's crew tensed, but she stepped forward, the gown's white cotton draped over her arm like a banner. "Tricks?" she said, her voice carrying. "This is art, and art doesn't bow to bullies." She held up the gown, its spirals catching the torchlight, and the crowd murmured in awe. Idris lunged, aiming to snatch it, but Zara was faster, tripping him with a weaver's agility. Malik and Fatu closed ranks, and the crowd's mood shifted, their cheers drowning Idris's threats. Kofi stepped in, his authority silencing the traitors. "Enough," he said, his eyes locked on Idris. The city chooses beauty over greed. Humiliated, Idris retreated, but not before hissing at Ava, "This isn't over." As the festival wound down, Ava's crew celebrated, their stalls swamped with orders. She felt invincible, but Kofi's warning echoed. Idris's defeat was temporary. and the spiral coin in her pocket seemed to pulse. That night, she found a new clue. A parchment slipped under her door, sketched with the same spiral and a single word: time. Her heart raced. Was someone else here? Someone who knew her secret? The desert runway was heating up, and Ava was ready to walk it straight into the court of Mansa Musa. The air in Timbuktu crackled with anticipation, like the moments before a thunderstorm. Ava Harper, New York's time-displaced fashion rebel, stood in Amina's workshop, her heart pounding as if it were keeping time with a runway show's baseline. 3 days. That's all she had, to create a garment worthy of Mansa Musa, the Mali Empire's god-king, whose wealth could drown empires. The summons had come at dawn, delivered by a royal griot named Sekou, his voice booming like a Broadway announcer. The stranger who weaves sunlight into cloth is called to the palace. Craft a robe for the festival of the sun, to be worn by the Mansa's chosen. Fail, and you will be cast beyond the sands. The threat was clear exile, or worse, but Ava didn't flinch. She smirked. Challenge accepted, Sekou. Tell your king I'm about to make history. The Festival of the Sun was Timbuktu's grandest spectacle, a celebration of Mali's might, where Mansa Musa dazzled his people with gold and glory. Ava's task was to dress the Mansa's chosen mysterious figure, rumored to be a royal cousin, a warrior, or even a queen. The catch? She had no fabric reserves after Idris's sabotage, no gold thread, and a workshop still scarred by the fire. Her crew Zara, Malik, and Fatu looked to her, their faces a mix of awe and anxiety. 3 days? Zara whispered, clutching a spool of rough cotton. Even the djinn couldn't weave that fast. Malik's fingers twitched, as if itching for a loom. Fatu, ever the realist, sighed. We have heart, Ava, but heart doesn't spin thread. Ava paced, her silk jumpsuit swishing, the spiral-etched coin in her pocket a nagging weight. The parchment with its cryptic time sketch burned in her mind, but she shoved it aside. Focus. She needed a vision. Closing her eyes, she pictured Manhattan's skyline at dusk-sharp lines, molten hues, audacious curves. Then she saw it, a robe unlike any Mali had known, a fusion of regal power and her own fierce edge. It would be deep indigo, the color of midnight, with a fitted bodice that flowed into a voluminous skirt, its hem embroidered with gold flames, inspired by the Chrysler Building's spire. A cape, sheer as a desert mirage, would trail behind, shimmering with beadwork. It was bold, sensual, a garment to command a kingdom. We're doing this, she declared, clapping her hands. Zara, scour the market for indigo cotton. Malik, find me beads, glass, bone, anything that sparkles. Fatu, work your magic on the loom. I'll handle the gold. Her crew sprang into action, their doubts melting under her fire, but the odds were brutal. The market was picked clean, traders hoarding supplies after Idris's whispers of Ava's foreign sorcery. She bartered her last Manhattan trinket, a silver bangle, for a single bolt of indigo cotton. Its weave, coarse but rich. Beads were harder. Malik returned with a handful of chipped glass, scavenged from a broken trader's crate. Gold thread was a fantasy Idris's allies had bought it all. Ava's first night was a blur of desperation and ingenuity. She tore apart her own jumpsuit, salvaging its gold zipper to melt into thin wires for embroidery. Sorry, baby, she muttered, slicing the silk. You're a sacrifice for art. Fatu taught her to dye the cotton deeper, using kola nut and a prayer to the river spirits. The indigo stained Ava's hands, its scent sharp and primal, grounding her. By lamplight, she sketched the robe's flames, each stroke a defiance of Idris, the clock, the impossible. Her crew worked beside her, their laughter a fragile shield against exhaustion. Zara hummed a griot's tune, Malik's quiet focus steadied them, and Fatu's stories of Mali's queens fueled their resolve. Day 2 brought chaos. Idris struck again, bribing a water carrier to spill his load across their dyed cotton, leaving it streaked and muddy. Zara cursed, Malik stared in horror, and even Fatu's calm wavered. Ava's temper flared. That snake thinks he's got us? She grabbed the ruined cloth, her mind racing. We'll make it work. Streaks are the new tie-dye. She re-dyed the cotton, blending the streaks into a stormy gradient, like a desert sky before rain. It was imperfect, raw, but it sang. The crew rallied, Malik stringing beads into a net for the cape, Zara stitching the bodice with fierce precision. Ava twisted her salvaged gold wires into flame shapes, her fingers bleeding from the effort. Each prick was a reminder. She was no stranger here. She was a force. Kofi appeared that evening, his indigo robe catching the sunset like a second sky. He'd been a shadow in her days, his warnings laced with a heat she couldn't ignore. Now he carried a small pouch, his expression unreadable. "For your work," he said, tossing it to her. Inside was gold thread fine, shimmering, enough for the robe's flames. Ava's eyes narrowed. "Why help me now?" Kofi stepped closer, his voice a low growl. "Because you burn brighter than Idris's schemes. But don't mistake this for trust." His gaze lingered, a challenge and a promise, and Ava felt her pulse race. "Noted," she said, her smile sharp. "But I don't need trust. I need thread." He left without another word, and she buried the thrill of his presence in her work. The final night was a fever dream. The workshop hummed with tension, the air thick with dye and sweat. Ava's robe took shape. The indigo bodice hugged Zara's form as a test model, its skirt billowing like a storm cloud. The beaded cape shimmered, fragile but fierce. The gold flames glowed, each stitch a rebellion. But time was a noose. As dawn broke, the robe was unfinished, the cape's hem frayed, the bodice's seams weak. Sekou arrived, his royal guards looming. "The Mansa waits," he intoned. Ava's crew froze, but she stood tall. "We're not done. Tell him we'll deliver at the festival's peak." Sekou's eyes narrowed, but he nodded. "Boldness may save you, or doom you." The festival was hours away, and Timbuktu pulsed with life drums, thundering, crowds chanting, gold dust glittering in the air. Ava's crew worked in a frenzy, Malik reinforcing seams, Zara sewing beads, Fatu chanting a weaver's blessing. Ava stitched the cape's hem, her hands shaking. The spiral coin fell from her pocket, rolling to a stop near a loom. She froze. A shadow moved outside a hooded figure, the same from her first night. It vanished, but left a scrap of cloth with another spiral and a new word: return. Her stomach twisted. Someone knew she didn't belong, but there was no time to chase ghosts. The festival's climax loomed. The Mansa's chosen was revealed. Queen Nia, a warrior princess, with eyes like obsidian and a presence that silenced the crowd. Ava's robe had to crown her, or Ava's dream and her place in Mala would crumble. With minutes to spare, the robe was complete. Ava dressed Nia herself, her fingers trembling as she adjusted the cape. The indigo glowed against Nia's skin. The gold flames danced, and the beaded cape trailed like a comet. Nia smiled. A rare gift. You weave power, stranger. Let us see if it holds. The procession began. Nia strode through Timbuktu's heart, the crowd parting like a sea. Ava and her crew followed, their breath held. The robe was a vision, its flames catching the sun, its cape floating like a mirage. The crowd roared, griots sang, and Mansa Musa, seated on a gold throne, leaned forward. But Idris was there, his eyes venomous. As Nia reached the throne, a gust of wind and natural sharp tore at the cape. Beads scattered, the hem frayed. The crowd gasped. Idris smirked, his hand twitching as if he'd signaled the sabotage. Ava's heart stopped. Failure loomed, but Nia moved. She swept the cape off, letting it fall like a shed skin, and stood in the indigo robe, its flames blazing. "This is Molly's future," she declared, her voice ablade. Not in gold, but in courage. The crowd erupted, drowning Idris's schemes. Mansa Musa rose, his nod a benediction. "The stranger has woven well," he said. "She stays." Ava's crew embraced, tears mixing with laughter. She'd done it. The robe was a triumph, Nia a goddess, and Idris's plot dust. But as the festival faded, Kofi found her, his face grave. Idris fled, but he left this. He handed her another parchment, a spiral, the word now, and a map to a desert shrine. The secret of time was closer, and Ava's victory felt fragile. Nia approached, her gaze piercing. "You are no ordinary weaver," she said. "The Mansa invites you to court, but beware, the palace holds eyes that see too much." Ava clutched the parchment, her mind racing. The runway was calling, but so was the truth of her journey. The palace of Mansa Musa gleamed like a fever dream, its mud brick walls adorned with gold filigree that caught the Timbuktu sun and set it ablaze. Ava Harper, New York's time-tossed fashion alchemist, stepped through its arched gates, her heart a drumbeat of ambition and unease. Her indigo robe stitched with gold flames that had crowned Queen Nia at the Festival of the Sun had earned her this invitation, a summons to the heart of Mali's power. But the spiral-etched coin in her pocket, the cryptic parchments marked time, return, and now, and the desert shrine map from Idris's final taunt weighed heavier than ever. The air smelled of myrrh, wealth, and secrets, and Ava knew she was walking a runway where one misstep could unravel everything. Her crew Zara, Malik, and Fatuhad begged to come, but the Mansa's decree was clear: Ava alone. "You've got this," Zara had whispered, her eyes fierce. Malik had pressed a beaded talisman into her hand, murmuring a weaver's blessing. Fatu, ever cryptic, had warned, "The palace sees what the market hides. Guard your heart." Ava wore their courage like armor, her new robe a creation of her own. Deep crimson cotton, its bodice sculpted to her curves, its skirt slit high to flash a glimpse of thigh with every step. Gold spiralsicos of the coin swirled across the hem, a dare to the universe. She was no stranger here. She was a storm. The throne room was a spectacle of excess. Gold dust shimmered on the floor, reflecting torchlight like a starfield. Courtiers in indigo and saffron robes whispered behind jeweled fans, their eyes raking Ava's form. Griots chanted Mansa Musa's titles: Emperor of Gold, Lion of Malius. He sat on a throne encrusted with emeralds. Beside him stood Queen Nia, her warrior's grace softened by a smile that felt like a private gift. But Ava's gaze snagged on another figure, Kofi, the salt merchant whose midnight eyes had haunted her since her arrival. He stood near the throne, his indigo robe clinging to his broad frame. His presence, a quiet command. Their eyes met, and a spark flared, dangerous, undeniable. "Ava Harper." Mansa Musa's voice boomed, rich as a griot's drum. "You weave cloth that sings. Mali welcomes such fire, but fire must serve the empire." He gestured to a velvet cushion, where a bolt of rare white cotton lay, its weave finer than silk. "Craft a garment for my court's next council, to honor our trade with Songhai. You have one night, prove your worth, or leave Timbuktu forever." One night, Ava's stomach twisted, but her smile was pure Manhattan bravado. "One night? I've turned worse deadlines into art. Watch me, Your Majesty," the court murmured, some amused, others skeptical. Nia's nod was subtle but warm. Kofi's gaze burned, a mix of warning and something deeper. As Ava bowed, a courtiera sharp-faced woman named Layla slipped her a folded parchment. Ava's pulse quickened. Another spiral, with a new word, "choose." Her fingers brushed the coin in her pocket. The game was escalating, and she was running out of time to decode it. The palace workshop was a weaver's paradise. Looms of polished wood, dyes in every hue, gold thread spooled like liquid sunlight. But Ava was alone, the court's eyes replaced by shadows that seemed to move. She sketched furiously, envisioning a garment to outshine her last, a sleeveless gown of white cotton, its neckline plunging to echo Harlem's fearless divas, its skirt layered with sheer panels that danced like desert winds. Gold spirals would climb its bodice, a nod to the mystery that stalked her. She worked with manic energy, dyeing the cotton under moonlight that streamed through a lattice window, its patterns casting spirals on the floor. A chill ran through her. Was the palace itself whispering? Hours bled away. Ava's hands trembled as she stitched, the gold thread slippery with her sweat. She hummed a Beyoncé track to steady herself, but the silence of the palace was oppressive. Then, a creak. A hooded figure stood in the doorway, the same shadow from her first night, from the festival. "Who are you?" Ava demanded, clutching her needle like a weapon. The figure stepped forward, revealing a face. Idris, the merchant, his eyes wild with desperation. "You don't belong here," he hissed. "The spirals mark you. Leave or the djinn of time will claim you." Ava's blood ran cold. "Djinn? You're the one leaving sabotaged looms and creepy notes. Spill it, Idris, or I'll make you a pincushion." He laughed, a jagged sound. "I'm no master, only a servant. The shrine holds the truth, your way home, or your doom. Choose, as the parchment says." He tossed a final scrap of cloth at her feet, embroidered with a spiral and a map pinpointing the shrine's altar. Before she could lunge, he vanished into the shadows, leaving her heart hammering. The revelation shook her, but the deadline loomed. Ava stitched faster, her mind racing. Was Idris a liar, or did the shrine hold answers to her time travel? The coin, the parchments, the spirals, they pointed to a truth she couldn't ignore. But the gown came first. She poured her fear into it, each gold spiral a defiance of Idris's threats. The bodice hugged her form as she tested it, the sheer skirt whispering secrets. It was a masterpiece, but unfinished. The neckline needed beads, and her supply was gone. Kofi appeared at midnight, his silhouette filling the doorway. "You're still here," he said, his voice a low rumble that sent heat through her. He carried a pouch of glass beads, their facets catching the moonlight. for your gown. Don't ask how I got them." Ava's lips curved. "You're making a habit of saving me, Salt Man." He stepped closer, his fingers brushing hers as he handed her the beads. "I save what's worth keeping," he murmured. For a moment, the workshop vanished, and it was just Themi's breath warm, her pulse wild. She wanted to pull him closer, to unravel his secrets, but the gown called. "Help me," she said instead. "We're on a clock." Kofi stayed, threading beads with surprising skill, his hands steady where hers shook. They worked in charged silence, their shoulders brushing, the air thick with unspoken desire. As dawn neared, the gown was complete, a vision of white and gold, its spirals a map of Ava's journey, its sheer layers a tease of vulnerability. She modeled it for Kofi, twirling so the skirt flared. His gaze darkened, a hunger that made her skin tingle. "You'll conquer them," he said. "But Idris's shrine, it's no myth. Be careful what you seek." The council dawned, Timbuktu's streets alive with drums and gold-dusted revelry. Ava presented the gown to Mansa Musa, worn by Layla, the courtier, whose sharp beauty made the spirals sing. The court gasped, then applauded, their cheers a tidal wave. Musa rose, his smile rare. "You are Mali's treasure, Ava Harper. Stay and weave for my court." Nia embraced her, whispering, "You've earned your place, but the shadows still watch." Ava's triumph was sweet, but Idris's words gnawed. The shrine, the jinn, the choice. That night, under a desert moon, Ava slipped from the palace, the shrine's map in hand. Kofi followed, unasked, his presence a shield. "You don't have to do this," he said, his hand grazing her wrist. She met his eyes, her voice soft but firm. "I need answers, Kofi. About time, about me." The shrine was a ruin of carved stone, its altar etched with spirals that glowed faintly. Ava placed the coin on it, and the air hummed, just like her Soho sewing machine. A voice ancient, neither male nor female, whispered, "Choose, stay and shape this world, or seek the path home." A portal shimmered, showing glimpses of New Yorker loft, her life. Ava's heart tore. Mali was hers, Nowhere crew, her designs, Kofi's fire. But home was her route. Before she could decide, Idris lunged from the shadows, a dagger glinting. "You'll ruin us!" he screamed. Kofi tackled him, their struggle a blur of muscle and fury. Ava grabbed the coin, the portal flickering. Idris's blade grazed Kofi's arm, and Ava's scream echoed. She kicked Idris, sending him sprawling, and Kofi pinned him. "Go," Kofi urged, blood dripping. "Choose." The portal pulsed. Ava clutched the coin, her eyes on Kofi, on Mali, on the unknown. She stepped back, the shrine's hum fading. "I'm not done here," she whispered. The portal closed, Idris's curses fading as guards, summoned by the noise, seized him. Kofi pulled her close, his breath ragged. "You stayed," he said, his lips brushing her ear. She smiled, fierce, for now, but the coin burned in her hand, and Layla's final whisper at the council rang. The jinn never forget. Ava's story wasn't over. The desert runway stretched on, and the truth of time waited. Want to know what Ava chooses next? Follow the journey on our channel. The next thread is coming.